Karoline Leavitt had always been a woman of principle. At 28, she had already made a name for herself as a fierce advocate for conservative values, often appearing on news channels to voice her opinions. But tonight, she wasn't on a news set or at a political rally. She was at La Maison de Luxe, a trendy upscale bistro in the heart of Manhattan, enjoying a rare evening off with her closest friends. The restaurant was bustling with energy. Soft jazz music played in the background, and the aroma of garlic butter and freshly baked bread filled the air. Karoline and her friends were seated at a corner table, laughing and sharing stories over glasses of red wine. Everything seemed perfect until it wasn't. The trouble began when the restaurant manager, a tall, stern-looking man named Victor, approached their table. His face was unreadable, but his tone was sharp. "Excuse me, miss," he said, addressing Karoline directly. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Karoline blinked, stunned. "Excuse me? Is there a problem?" Victor crossed his arms. "We've received complaints from other guests about your political views. They find your presence here disruptive." Karoline's friends gasped. One of them, Sarah, spoke up. "That's ridiculous. She hasn't said a word about politics all night. We're just having dinner." Victor remained unmoved. "I'm sorry, but I have to think about the comfort of all our guests. Please gather your things and leave." Karoline felt a mix of anger and humiliation. She had faced criticism before, but this was different. This was personal. She stood up, her cheeks flushed, and looked Victor straight in the eye. "You're making a mistake," she said calmly but firmly. "But I won't cause a scene. I'll leave for now." As she walked out of the restaurant with her friends, Karoline's mind raced. She couldn't let this slide. She had been publicly humiliated, and she knew this wasn't just about her. It was about silencing voices that didn't conform to the mainstream narrative. She was determined to fight back, but she needed a plan. Little did anyone know, Karoline's next move would send shockwaves through the city and beyond. The night air was crisp as Karoline and her friends stepped out of La Maison de Luxe. The hum of New York City surrounded them. Honking cars, distant laughter, and the faint glow of streetlights reflecting off skyscrapers. But the group was silent, still processing what had just happened. Sarah broke the silence first. "I can't believe he kicked you out. That was so unfair." Karoline took a deep breath, her mind already shifting from shock to strategy. "It's not just unfair, it's wrong. They can't just silence people because they don't agree with them. This isn't about me. It's about something much bigger." Her friends nodded, but they could see the fire in her eyes. Karoline wasn't just upset. She was inspired. By the time she got home that night, she had already started formulating a plan. The next morning, Karoline woke up early and got to work. She knew she couldn't fight this battle alone, so she reached out to her network of like-minded individuals, journalists, activists, and entrepreneurs who shared her passion for free speech and individual liberty. Within hours, she had scheduled a series of meetings and phone calls. Her first call was with Marcus, a tech-savvy friend who ran a successful social media marketing firm. "Marcus, I need your help," she said as soon as he picked up. "I want to create a movement, a platform where people can share their stories without fear of being silenced." Marcus listened intently as Karoline explained her vision. By the end of the call, he was on board. "Let's do it," he said. "I'll start building the website and social media channels. We'll call it The Unsilenced Voice." Karoline smiled. It was perfect. Next, she reached out to a journalist friend, Emily, who worked for a major news outlet. "Emily, I need you to cover this story," Karoline said. "What happened to me last night isn't an isolated incident. People are being silenced everywhere, in restaurants, schools, workplaces. We need to shine a light on this." Emily agreed immediately. "I'll write the piece and pitch it to my editor. This is exactly the kind of story people need to hear." By the end of the day, Karoline had assembled a small but dedicated team. They had a name, a mission, and a plan. But Karoline knew that to truly make an impact, they needed to act fast and boldly. Within a week, The Unsilenced Voice was live. Marcus had worked tirelessly to create a sleek, user-friendly website where people could share their stories of being silenced or discriminated against for their beliefs. The site also featured resources for legal support, mental health counseling, and community building. Karoline and her team promoted it relentlessly on social media, using hashtags like #unsilenced and #speakyourtruth. The response was overwhelming. Within days, the website was flooded with stories from people across the country. A college student in Ohio shared how she was ostracized for expressing conservative views in class. A small business owner in Texas recounted how he lost customers after voicing support for a controversial policy. And a mother in California described how her child's school had banned certain books simply because they didn't align with the administration's ideology. Karoline's story, as told by Emily in her widely read article, became the catalyst for the movement. The piece went viral, sparking debates on news channels, social media platforms, and even in Congress. People were divided. Some applauded Karoline for standing up for free speech, while others accused her of playing the victim. But one thing was clear. The unsilenced voice had struck a nerve. Meanwhile, Victor, the manager of La Maison de Luxe, was feeling the heat. The restaurant's social media pages were inundated with negative reviews and comments. Protesters gathered outside the bistro, holding signs that read, "Free speech for all," and "Boycott La Maison de Luxe." Business plummeted, and Victor found himself at the center of a media storm. Karoline, however, wasn't interested in revenge. She reached out to Victor directly, offering to meet and discuss what had happened. To her surprise, he agreed. The meeting between Karoline and Victor took place at a neutral location, a quiet coffee shop a few blocks away from La Maison de Luxe. The atmosphere was tense as they sat across from each other, steaming cups of coffee untouched on the table. Victor spoke first. "I didn't expect things to blow up like this," he admitted, his voice tinged with regret. "I was just trying to keep the peace in my restaurant." Karoline nodded, her expression calm but firm. "I understand that, Victor. But what you did wasn't about keeping the peace, it was about silencing someone you disagreed with. And that's not okay." Victor sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Look, I'm not a bad guy. I was under pressure from some of the other guests, and I made a snap decision. I didn't think it would turn into this." Karoline leaned forward, her eyes locking with his. "This isn't just about me or your restaurant. It's about a bigger issue, people being punished for their beliefs. If we don't stand up for free speech, who will?" Victor was silent for a moment, clearly wrestling with his thoughts. Finally, he spoke. "What do you want from me?" Karoline smiled softly. "I don't want to ruin your business, Victor. I want you to understand the impact of your actions and to make things right. How about we turn this into an opportunity?" Victor raised an eyebrow. "An opportunity?" "Yes," Karoline said. "What if La Maison de Luxe became a place where people from all walks of life could come together to have open, respectful conversations? A place where differing opinions are welcomed, not silenced." Victor considered this, his expression softening. "That could actually work. But how do we get people to trust us again?" Karoline's smile widened. "Leave that to me." Karoline and Victor worked together to transform La Maison de Luxe into a symbol of unity and free expression. They announced a series of conversation dinners, where people with differing political views could come together to share a meal and engage in respectful dialogue. The events were moderated by neutral facilitators to ensure productive discussions. The first conversation dinner was a resounding success. People from all walks of life, conservatives, liberals, independents, filled the restaurant, eager to connect and understand one another. Karoline herself attended, sitting at a table with a diverse group of guests. The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter, thoughtful debates, and moments of genuine connection. Media outlets covered the event extensively, praising Karoline and Victor for their innovative approach to bridging divides. The unsilenced voice gained even more traction, becoming a hub for stories of reconciliation and understanding. Karoline's movement had evolved from a response to injustice into a powerful force for change. As the weeks went by, La Maison de Luxe became a beloved institution in the city, known not just for its exquisite food, but for its commitment to fostering meaningful conversations. Victor, once seen as the villain of the story, became a vocal advocate for free speech and open dialogue. Karoline, meanwhile, continued to grow the unsilenced voice, expanding its reach and impact. She traveled the country, speaking at events and inspiring others to stand up for their beliefs while respecting those of others. Her story, and the story of La Maison de Luxe, became a testament to the power of resilience, empathy, and the human spirit. In the end, what started as a moment of humiliation became a catalyst for something extraordinary. Karoline Leavitt didn't just shock everyone. She reminded them of the importance of listening, understanding, and standing up for what's right.